Episode 15 on transforming self-criticism and doubt into self-worth and confidence with Dr. Aziz Gazipura. Welcome to Brave by Design. I'm your host, Laura Khalil. I'm an entrepreneur, coach, and speaker. I love thinking big, exploring the power of personal development, and sharing the best strategies from thought leaders and pioneers in business to empower ambitious women and allies to bravely rise and thrive. Let's get started. Okay, there we go. We're off to the races. Everyone, welcome to this episode of Brave by Design. I am about to go bananas over our guest today, and I think you're going to find out why in just a minute. Dr. Aziz Gazipura is the world's leading confidence expert. He teaches people how to learn confidence so they can eliminate self-doubt, hesitation, and social anxiety, and master conversations, accelerate in their careers, and create deeply fulfilling relationships. He completed his doctoral training at Stanford and Palo, Alto universities and is the founder of the Center for Social Confidence. He has a large online following with his podcast and YouTube videos, and he is the author of 3 best-selling books, including his most popular, Not Nice, which I am a huge fan of. Dr. Aziz, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Wow, I love it. I love your enthusiasm, and I'm excited. I love that there's someone who's excited, as I am, about talking about confidence, being less nice, being on your own side, because that's the world I live in. I could nerd out about that for hours.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. Now, you have a new book out. This one is called On My Own Side, Transform Self-Criticism and Doubt into Permanent Self-Worth and Confidence. This was just released. And before we get into that book, which is what we're going to spend our time here chatting about, I cannot tell you how many people I have given Not Nice to. It is like my Bible. I am obsessed with it, and it feels, I just want to say thank you for creating that, truly, because it's an incredible book. And I think for women especially who need to hear that message, it is so powerful because we think it's mean to be not nice.
Yes, and that's the biggest trap. It's this, either you fall into this overly nice and therefore people pleasing, not wanting to create conflict, not wanting to upset anybody. And what we don't realize is if we're going down that path, we're not actually being a kind, good person like we think. What we're doing is we're getting further and further from our true selves. We're alienating from ourselves. And that actually the way back to being ourselves and the opposite of being excessively nice is to be authentic, is to be real, is to be bold, is to be expressive. And then not only can we feel much better about ourselves, we can have better relationships where we're actually more authentically kind and generous and genuine. So it is truly a liberating path if we're willing to follow it. So I'm so glad that you're on board with that and you're spreading the message.
Oh my God, yes. I'm crazy about it. I don't want to say I'm stalking you because that would seem very weird and unprofessional, but in a professional way, I am following your career closely. I am very interested in what you're doing. And I think that On My Own Side seems like such a beautiful follow-up to Not Nice. And so what I'd love to do is start by you sharing a little bit about, like, you're a dude who's talking about really emotional stuff, feelings, empathy, getting into our bodies. That is not typically something that we hear from men. That's typically, the Brene Browns of the world are talking about that stuff. So I would love if you could start us off by telling us your story and why you do this.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can go all the way back, and people often ask, why do you teach around confidence? Why is that an area that you're so focused on? One person actually asked me, so why did you decide to become Mr. Confidence? And I was like, well, I don't think I've ever called myself that, but thank you. But the reason is because I struggled with it so much. I had such limited confidence. I had extremely low self-esteem, a lot of social anxiety, and as a result, lived in a cage. And I talk about this at my live events. It's like an invisible cage that you pick up and you carry it with you. And that cage could be social anxiety. I don't want to reach out. I don't want to talk to people, and just a lot of hesitation and self-criticism and self-judgment. But it could also be the cage of niceness, where you do go talk to people, but you're still pretty confined and restricted and overly guilty and then second guessing yourself and all that stuff. So I carried both of those cages, probably many, many more cages with me, and was living a life that was full of suffering.
Mm.
And I was really just trying to cope with that. And so I would use a fair amount of cannabis, play a lot of video games, TV, just a lot of ways to numb out, really. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's unfortunately quite common in our culture.
Oh,
And
yeah.
people don't necessarily think of it as numbing out, but, geez, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 hours of screen time a day. But what are we doing with our lives? We're not fully alive. We're not fully living. And I think it's because so many people have so much pain inside. And then there is this general attitude in our culture, especially in Western culture, especially in the United States, of like pain inside. What are you, a snowflake? Like, come on,
Oh, right.
you just get stuff done. You just take action. You just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually exemplified. One time I was at a gathering with some people, and there was a guy there who found out what people did, and he hadn't got to me yet. He didn't know that I do coaching. But someone mentioned the name Tony Robbins. And he said, "Oh, God, Tony Robbins." Little did he know that I'm a coach. I'm a psychologist. I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. I studied his material, apply it a lot. Anyway, and he's like, "Oh, that guy. That's the whole coaching field is just a bunch of desperate people, and then people who take advantage of them. It's just so pathetic."
Wow.
And I said, "So I'm curious, what have you studied of Tony Robbins' programs?"
Mm-hmm.
And the guy said, "Well, I actually really haven't studied anything. Maybe I've seen a YouTube video." I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, okay." And then I said, "Well, let me ask you a question. Uh, let's say someone is facing a challenge in their life, maybe in their relationship or at work, and they've tried everything they could to solve it. They read some books, they talked to some people, and they were still stuck.
Yep.
What should they do?" And he was a little flustered by the fact that I was actually trying to have a real dialogue with him, just spouting off an opinion. And he said, "Well, get a 6-pack of beer and go to the back of the yard. And if that can't fix it, I don't know what else." And then I was like, okay,
Whoa.
he's sort of an extreme example that I'm giving here, but I do think a lot of people have a general attitude and idea of like your feelings, coaching, working on yourself, reading books, like feh. And that is so unfortunate, because what I discovered, to bring it back to my journey, I reached a rock bottom place of pain, and I had a threshold moment, which I'm so grateful for. And so many people that come into my world have this moment where you wake up and you see, this is the amount of pain that I've been trying to numb out. And in my future is even more. Oh my God. And the woman who wrote, I'm blanking on her name, she wrote Mind Over Medicine. Lisa Rankin has this beautiful quote that says, "When the pain of staying where you are exceeds your fear of the unknown, you will leap."
Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to me. And so I started to look, and we're living in an amazing time. For me, this journey started 17 years ago, and the internet was already still going and strong. So you could start to look online. It's even more abundant now. But I started to look online. It's like, what's out there? And it's not that I hadn't done that in the 10, 15 years that I was struggling with anxiety before then, but it was the first time I was really looking
Now,
for
were
a
you
solution.
already, where were you in your career at that point?
I was young. I was 21.
Okay.
I was finishing up, I was in computers. I switched out of computer science in college and was looking for something else, and I was drawn to psychology. And it was right around that time that I started to, discover that there might be a solution. So I was starting to study psychology in university, but then I also started to study it in personal development. And that one just took off for me, because I started to discover some resources that basically were teaching me that you could shift your basic stuff. Like, you can change the way you think, you can change the way you talk to yourself, you can change a belief. These things, I mean, I really did have a fixed mindset at that point in my life. Up until that point, this is how it is. This is who I am. I'm not a confident person. I'm not an outgoing person. I'm not a charming person. I'm not an attractive person.
And that's that.
And that's that. Settled. Like, look at that person over there. Look at me. Enough said.
Right.
So it was about coping with my life and with who I was and with the hand that I believed I was dealt, as opposed to growing and unlocking and unbinding myself from these stories and limitations. And then when I got a taste, man, I got hooked. And that's why when I hear
Yeah.
about that guy at the dinner party who's telling me about that, this stuff is all so stupid. And even people that I love and cherish in my life who will barely pick up a book when they're struggling with something for years. And I think, wow, what liberation is being lost there.
Well, I mean, and that's really the truth, is that we get so comfortable in that discomfort, because you talk a lot about this, about things that are certain to us and things that are known to us. And
Mm.
sometimes it can be more comfortable because we know what it feels like to feel like crap. We know what it feels like to um, have those self-limiting beliefs. They're very well worn. And in fact, I want us to talk a little bit about that role that you spend so much time in the book discussing, that role of the inner critic. What is the inner critic? Why do we have it?
Yeah. The inner critic, to sum it up, most people are vaguely aware that they have an inner critic. And they're aware when it attacks them and says like, "Yeah, you ate that cake, you're such a or you didn't speak up, or you're such a loser. Oh, that person's never going to call you back because you're no good." And we're very aware when it's going on, this onslaught against us. What we're not aware of is that there's a background campaign that it's running at all times that's just maybe not directly attacking us, but kind of undermining us. Are you sure you really want to do that? It's probably not going to go well. You should just wait. Don't try that. You're going to put yourself out there. No, they're not going to like you anyway. It's just very reasonable, very comforting in a way to have this.
Yep.
It's like a little guide on our shoulder, but it's, where is it guiding us? And that's what I always steer people towards. I say, if you listen to the critic, where is it guiding you? And this gives us a clue as to what its purpose is. But it's always guiding you away from action, away from risk, away from potential pain. Because it
Into
sees
safety,
in safety.
known places. Yeah.
Safety and known. The known is safe. The known might be utterly painful and miserable and depressing, but you're alive. And it's deep survival programming in us that
Mm.
says, I need to stay alive. And a risk, an emotional risk in this day and age, is what we really face. Very few of our risks are physical, but our programming in our mind and our DNA and our heritage is very much like, you got to stay alive. And so we bring that to everything. So getting rejected on a date
Yep.
is life-threatening to a part of us. And
Wow.
that part runs a campaign day and night that says, avoid, 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 stay safe, stay safe. And it's one of its most powerful tools. It's got a repertoire of tools, but one is that inner critic.
You write this quote in the book. You say, we spend so much time worrying about how we come across to others. We plan what we're going to say. We think of ways to make others feel positive towards us, and strive to impress and be adored. And then you go on to say, except we neglect the relationship with ourselves, which we completely ignore or put low on the priority list. How have we learned to put ourselves so low on that list? Why is that?
Yeah,
Because I
it's
don't think
really,
people see it that way. They think, oh, there's just this voice telling me, stay safe. But
yeah,
what they don't realize is you're actually knocking yourself down.
yeah. What's really interesting about that is, in this day and age, and especially in our culture, we actually are very self-focused,
Mm-hmm.
which is so funny to have this like bad relationship with ourselves that's also very self-absorbed. It's
Yes.
kind of a crazy
And actually, can you
combination.
dig into that more? Because I'd like people to understand why that is so self-absorbed.
Sure. Well, whenever I'm dealing with someone with social anxiety or something's happening, I'll say, well, what's going on? What are you afraid of? Well, I'm going to show up and I have this talk I'm going to give, and I don't know if it's going to be good enough. And what if I stumble on my words and people are going to look at me and they're going to think I don't know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, okay, wait a minute. And I'll do this with them. I'll say, I'm going to stumble on my words. I'm going to look like I don't know what I'm talking about. And I highlight how there is zero focus on what is the message I want to contribute, what's the outcome in this meeting, what is the impact I want to have, what's
Wow.
going to matter for them and their lives, why is it good, they want to listen to it, so it's going to improve their life or their business in some way. And they're like, oh,
It's
yeah.
all about me.
Yeah, and that doesn't make us bad. That just
Mm-hmm.
makes us afraid. Because when we get afraid, we become focused on our survival. And I think we're generally operating with a fair level background of anxiety, and it's about like, how do I look good enough to get love? And that's a big part of the book, is we have this core belief that we need to earn our worth, and we need to earn love. And so we're in this hustle, this permanent hyperdrive to, and we've kind of lost sight of it. So it's just this habit of like, well, of course I can't feel loved right now because I haven't achieved all my goals yet. And it's this carrot that we're constantly holding out. And we live our lives in this perpetual state of lack of worth and lack of love, thinking one day we're going to get it. And so that makes us very self-absorbed, very, very self-focused.
Incredibly. I mean, it's, you talk about this later on in the book, if only I wore this size of clothing, or weighed this amount, or fixed the wrinkles on my face, or, whatever it may be. And the thing that's so insidious about this is that even when we hit that goal, if we do, we're still not there.
Yeah.
You're never there. And
Yeah.
so it's such an inside job. In the book, I mean, guys, if you have not been through therapy, this book is basically like giving you the tools that you would use in therapy to, or in a coaching practice, to work through these issues. And that brings me to another point or question. And this may sound kind of like a silly question to ask, but I'd love to hear your answer, which is, why should we do any of this? Why is nurturing the relationship with ourself important? What does it look like on the other side?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think what we want to do is we want to get really honest with ourselves and say, deep down, do I live my life in a state of gratitude, joy, trust, and fulfillment? And the answer for most people is no. And it doesn't matter what we want to represent to others and what we want to put on in our social media and our social persona, but the truth is, deep down, most of us don't. And there's a lot of suffering, and hence the 12 hours. And the 12 hours of screen time is a stat that I actually cite in the book. That's that's from the Nielsen company that tracks all that stuff. 12 hours a day of screen time is the average American usage, and that doesn't include your screen time at work. So it's basically people are on average connected to a screen most of their waking hours, which again, I don't want to make all that is instantly bad or instantly shows that we're hating ourselves, but it is like a kind of a red flag. And it's like, how much time can we really connect with ourselves and be aware of ourselves if we're constantly outwardly focused on a screen? And so what we want to do is we want to say, am I really thriving? Am I really alive? Am I really feeling good inside? And if the answer is no, great. Let's acknowledge that. Let's see it as it is, because there is a pathway, and the pathway is not to earn more and achieve more and get more accolades and get more recognition. The pathway is to, as I call this, journey into the center of your heart. Why are you not right with yourself? And it really does come back to that relationship and how we're treating ourselves. And we only start to think about this relationship like you would with a relationship with anyone else. If you were in an abusive relationship where every day you got home, the person was waiting there saying, you're not smart, you're not good, you're fat, you're ugly, you're gross, you're this, you're that, blah, blah, blah. Like, how could you possibly feel enjoyment and happiness in your life when you're at home? And that's what we're doing, only that person is not at our home, that person's with us 24/7. And so if we don't get control of that, we will suffer no matter how much we succeed. And if we do get control of that, not only do we feel better right now, but we end up enjoying our success, actually being able to relish it and ultimately succeed even more, because now you don't have this insane headwind of 50 miles an hour pushing you back every step of the way with doubt and self-judgment.
One of the things you're saying that is reminding me, I was in a sort of a group conversation with a bunch of people a month ago, and we were talking about self-worth and how to get self-worth, right? How to feel. And I said, you're worthy because you are. And you are here, you are alive, you are in life, and that is enough to feel the worthiness, not because, as you say, of having achieved certain things. So when we talk about the self-critic, you give a sort of a top 10 list. First of all, there's a great quiz in the book
Mm.
about sort of determining like how I can't remember how you call it, but basically how strong or weak perhaps the self-critic is within you,
Mhm.
which I loved doing. And then you give this top 10 recap of these are sort of the 10 types of ways that your self-critic may appear. And I'd love to know if there's a couple of those that you feel most people feel very strongly.
Mhm. Sure. Yeah. Well, there's the direct self-attack, which, as I said before, everyone can identify when that's happening. And what I wanted to share in the book was tools to actually be able to interrupt and stop that, because
Mm-hmm.
that one is the most devastating to our confidence and to our sense of self and everything. And so what I struggled with was a voracious inner critic, and I honestly didn't know how to stop it when it would get started. It felt like it
Mm.
was just this like angry parent inside that I would just have to sit there and receive. And so in the book, not only do I share the tools about how to interrupt that, but I also help people get into a state where they are the inner authority
Yes.
and they're not just letting that part run the show. So it's a very important one, but that is only an initial step,
Yeah.
because to not actively berate yourself in your head is a great beginning, but that's not the bar we want to set. If you're looking at it as a relationship, that's not a great standard for a relationship. You want it to actually be much more nourishing and encouraging and inspiring
Mm.
than that. So we're going to get more aware of the subtle ones. And
Yeah.
so some of the common ones I think people should be aware of. One is an attitude of dismissal or pushing aside your own feelings or perspective. This one is extremely common, especially people that, when we talked about not nice earlier, people that
Mm-hmm.
are nice and pleasing. It's like looking
Oh,
to others. So it's like you have a feeling about something. I don't like that thing. I want that. I don't want that. Like, these are natural human. This is your own emotional guidance system trying to help you navigate your relationships in life. And our habitual response from our critic can be, "Ugh, why are you feeling that? Why don't you should like that person more. You don't want to go to that thing. Why don't you never want to go to anything? Come on, you just need to make yourself go. Come on, just do it." And it's our immediate response is not curiosity with ourselves.
mm.
It's impatience, and it's trying to like push and navigate, like to push ourselves to be a certain way, do certain things, and act a certain way. And that is all designed to be the way that we think we need to be in order to stay safe, keep our relationships, and be loved.
And be
But it's not
accepted. Yeah.
be accepted. It's not necessarily who we are. So that's a very common form of turning on ourselves. Another one is to be comparing ourselves frequently, excessively to others.
And in this
And
day and age, my
oh my
God.
gosh, it's so easy to do it. And it's not comparison based upon like that person runs faster than I do. Look, I ran, they were faster. Like, that's a accurate type of comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually value in those comparisons. Because then you could say, well, do I want to run faster? I wonder what they did to run faster. I can learn from them. And maybe I won't run as fast as them, but I can certainly run faster than I do. So we can use that kind of comparison. But that's not usually what we do. That's not the self-critical comparison. The self-critical comparison is basically someone has or does something that I haven't done, or looks a certain way that I don't look, and I am worthless. It's like
Mm-hmm.
this shortcut to undercutting our worth. And I've seen this in people that are extremely successful. I mean, just have everything you could imagine, and they're focused on, but that person has that. And they instantly feel inadequate, inferior, and it's insane. And we know it's insane. But a lot of this critical inner critic stuff is, um, if someone calls it out, we're like, yeah, I know it's ridiculous, but we can't stop.
We keep doing it.
We're addicted to it. It's habit. It's a lot of habit in there.
Talk a little bit about the addiction element, because I think that is so key for people to understand that we are actually addicted to certain behaviors that
Yes.
we exhibit. Why is
Yes.
that? What is that about?
Sure. So an addiction is something that meets multiple of our needs at once. And one of our most basic needs is to feel a sense of, so like, there's different words for it. Tony Robbins will call it certainty. Other people might call it safety. You can also think of it as like solidity or something, like, I understand how things work in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And you're oriented versus disoriented. So if we don't have enough certainty or safety or whatever, we feel disoriented. We feel scared. We feel anxious. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so one of the, like, it's probably the primary drive in humans is to get a sense of clarity, certainty, control. And that's why, and we'll get it however we can. And
Okay.
one easy way to get it is to say, I'm right and they're wrong, and create an out group and hate on that out group. That's when people are doing that, you're getting a sense of certainty. They're also getting a sense of connection with other people in their group, for example, like that. So when something meets multiple needs at once, we would go to that pattern again and again and again. Just like, if someone grabs a drink, that'll meet multiple needs at once.
Mm-hmm.
It can give them a sense of that, it calms that anxious voice down, so they get a sense of certainty or orientation temporarily. It also gives them a sense of changing makes things more interesting, gives them a little bit of variety. If they drink with other people, they can feel more connected. There's a lot of things that it meets. Now, the inner critic, the primary need that it meets is a sense of certainty. It's like, I know how things are. If you listen to that voice in your head, there's one thing that it is. It's not accurate. It's not truthful. It's not helpful. But one thing it is for sure is absolutely certain about what it's saying. It's certain that you're a loser. It's certain you don't know what you're talking about. It's certain that thing that you want to go for is not going to work. It is certain. And so it meets that need in one of the worst ways possible for our own emotional health, but it meets that need. And one other need that it meets, and why we're addicted to it, is it meets our need for connection in the safest way possible. So we want to, it's a primary need to connect and love and be with other humans. And that's inherently risky, though. You got to open your heart.
Right.
What if that other person leaves you?
What if they reject you?
Rejects you? Or even if you have the greatest relationship of all, that person could get sick and die. And we all know that. And so it's inherently risky. It's just, that's the ticket to admission if you want to love and connect as a human. And that's scary. So that part of us that doesn't want to feel any pain, wants to stay totally safe, says, you know what? I'm not going to put myself out there. I'm going to withdraw, and then I'll just connect with myself. And beating yourself up is a weird form of connection. Just like when people get in fights in relationship and they're like, no, but you said that. And then you said that. Have you ever been in a fight like this where people are so upset with each other? And then you're like, maybe we should take a break. And it's like, no, we're going to stay in this because there's a strong sense of connection there, even though it also hurts.
Amidst all that chaos and anger,
there's connection. So it's the same thing when our critic is berating us. We get the sense of connection. It's nothing. It pales in comparison to what you can feel in terms of love with another person or even love with yourself. But we settle for crumbs.
Yeah.
And so it meets the need for certainty and connection. And then all of a sudden we go to it. We go to it again and again and again, and then we get hooked.
Wow. Incredible. Now let's sort of turn in the other direction, and what the focus of the book is around being on my own side. And what does that mean, to be on my own side no matter what?
Yeah. What I love about this is it's a choose your own adventure. And I encourage people as they read the book to discover what that means for themselves, because there's no one way. And so I share what my definition of on my own side is. And that was a snapshot in time. That was my definition as I was writing the book. And we also have, as people who have the book, you can go to almostbook.com, and we have a ton of resources there. And one of them is an audio of me sharing my definition of on my own side from the book. So, but that's just there to inspire and encourage people to discover what it is for themselves. But some of the components for me are to really think about it as a relationship with someone else. And I want, the way that I treat my wife when we're in loving connection, the way I want to treat my boys, it's like, I want to bring that to myself. So what is that? Well, it's a relationship of empathy, of really caring about myself, being curious about what I'm feeling and thinking and my perceptions, really curious about what is it that I want or don't want that matters. Just like if you're in a relationship with someone and they say, I want this. And you say, I don't care what you want. It doesn't matter to me. Like, wow, that's a problem.
Red flag.
Right? Red flag, right? Versus like, oh, I care what you want. Tell me. And now that doesn't mean you get everything you want instantly, but I want to hear it. I want to know what it is, and we can work together to see how we can help you have it. So it's that relationship with yourself. It's also one of encouragement. So when I say, here's this thing I want to create or do or achieve or pursue because it's meaningful to me, I want in there myself to be like, yeah, I love it. That sounds exciting. How would we do that? How would we create that? How do we achieve that? So there's encouragement there. There is a belief in myself there. and there is um, a refusal to turn on myself. And so the second I notice it, what I want is I want people to have, the acronym we use throughout the book is OMOS, on my own side, OMOS. So I use that again and again throughout the book. And I want people to have an OMOS immune system where when they turn on themselves, there's this like, ugh, what's going on there? That feels sick. Let me address that. And so one of the most powerful practices I have is when I notice myself turning on myself. And yes, I wrote this book, and yes, that still happens because these patterns are insidious and it gets
Sure.
sneakier and sneakier the more you study it. But when I notice it and I catch one, I say, whoa, I don't do that.
Okay.
I don't turn on myself in that way. And so that's also part of being on my own side, is continually catching any way, no matter how subtle, that I'm not on my own side, and bringing it back in.
One of the things that you mentioned in the book is you talk about grabbing a journal and doing an inventory of catching yourself when you start to hear your inner critic coming out. And, it's funny because I was like, I don't think my inner critic I feel like I have good control over it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm nice to myself a lot of the time. So I thought, I don't know that I'm going to need to do that. But I thought, all right, you're coming on the show. Let me try it out. I was shocked. I couldn't believe how many times
Mm-hmm.
it appears, and it appears for other listeners, know that this can appear like a little whisper. It doesn't necessarily have to be banging on the door of your mind. It for me, it came in just like a little whisper, in and out, in and out, in and out. And I thought, wow, that is incredible to see all of the different kinds of ways that it can appear. And then once we become mindful of it, as you know, behavior change is so incredibly hard for individuals because we have such ingrained patterns. But just becoming aware, and as I love you say, getting curious about why did that pop in? What is that true? Is that really true? Why am I being mean to myself? I just absolutely
Mm-hmm.
love that. And I really encourage folks to pick up the book. As before we got on this episode, I was reading through it over 550 pages. I mean, this is like, not to say that it's insurmountable, but to say that it is incredibly comprehensive for anyone who is interested in learning how to sort of tame the inner critic, be nicer to oneself, develop that self-worth. It is absolutely beautiful. Dr. Aziz, is there a couple of key takeaways you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I love it. And I'm so glad that you did that exercise and really saw, because there's always another level to being on our own side. And that is how the critic operates. Often it's just infused with our normal thought stream.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to get some water. I'm going to talk to this person. Yeah, I'm probably never going to achieve that goal because, I mean, look at those people that achieve those goals. Not me, not me. And then I'm going to, get this food over here. And it's right in there. And yet it can be powerful. In fact, that is how the critic wants to operate.
Mm-hmm.
You want to think about the critic like a propaganda campaign. Because remember, its whole agenda, stay safe, avoid all risks.
Mm-hmm.
And think about like a dictatorial regime or something that wants to maintain total control, bringing out the troops, that's like the overt self-attack. That's kind of a labor-intensive, resource-intensive way of trying to keep you in line.
Right.
It's much, much better to have such control over the populace that you don't even need to bring out the troops. And so its goal is to have such control over you that when you don't even think about pursuing something, like let's say someone's single and they want to create a loving relationship, it just has this like, no, never
Don't
gonna
do
happen.
it. Not gonna work.
Don't even think about it. And most people will be like, yeah, all right. And that's that it's got way too much power.
It's got a grip.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm so excited that this book is out here, because if it's got a grip, and here's the thing, here's my message of hope: no matter how intense your critic is, no matter how long it's been there, whether it's led to suicidal depression, levels of self-hatred, it does not matter. The flame within you that is compassion and self-love is more powerful. It's just a new habit. It's just a new pattern. And
Mhm.
the more awareness you get of the critic, the more power you'll have. Because the reason it has so much power for most people is not because it is that powerful. It's because we've given it that power because we've been unconscious of it. And as soon as you get more aware of it, and that's why the book is a lot about awareness building, because
Mhm.
when you see it, boom, you start to reclaim your power. And oftentimes people don't have to do all the exercises. They just start to say, wait, whoa, that's self-criticism. I don't want to do that. And it starts to work. And they're like, oh,
Yeah.
all right. So that's my message of inspiration, hope. Absolutely. You can shift this. You can shift it faster than you think. And I would say one key takeaway is that this does not happen by default. We don't just like listen to this interview and be like, cool, I got it solved. You might have some benefit, you'll get some awareness, but to truly liberate yourself, you must make what I call the decision of a lifetime. And I guide people through
Mm.
this in the book. You must decide after you see how messed up the way you've been treating yourself is, which is the whole first part of the book and the first
Yep.
chapter is about, then it's like, you're going to make the decision of a lifetime, which is I'm going to be on my own side no matter what.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how yet. I'll figure that out later, but I'm committed to this and doing what it takes, because if we don't, then we'll make a little bit of progress and we'll regain control, make a little progress and we'll live in that kind of gray zone of our lives. And I want people to really break through to the other side where you really do feel this joy of being alive, joy in who you are. And that comes from that decision. And then once you've made that, then all the tools and everything else that you learn will help you. But if you're listening to this and you're ready to make that decision, I encourage you to do so now. And then from that place, dive into this book or
Yeah.
other resources out there to really make this shift now.
You have to be willing to do the work. And, it's interesting because we live in this society where, it's like the 7 things you're supposed to do before 6 a.m., or, how to have the most productive day, or how to be the best parent possible, how to be the best employee, whatever it may be. And we're constantly running towards a quick fix. But I'll say, and I hope that you'll agree, that some of the most profound work we will do on ourselves can take a little bit of time. It doesn't need to take years or anything, but it will take more than just listening to this. It will actually take you going into a contemplative self reflection that you do consistently with the practices that you are guided through in the book. That's how we actually achieve change. I would love to say there's a quick fix. I have not seen it yet. I will continue to wait for it. But until then, uh, pick up the book, guys. Dr. Aziz, how can people find you or find the book?
Beautiful. So you can go to omosbook.com. That's OMOS book.com. And then there's links to Kindle, Amazon. You can get a paperback as well, or on Audible. Depending on when this interview is released, the Audible is going to be coming out in just a little bit because the Kindle just released last week. So we'll have the Audible. Yours truly reads that one, which is a great way to immerse in the experience and actually go through the exercises and be guided and really the main form of teaching that I do is through live seminars and group programs and stuff. So the audio is a really good way to get a sense of me actually right there working with you through this process. So that's the best place to start. Also, if people want to find out more about me, YouTube channel, podcast, tons of free resources, as well as going deeper, you can go to draziz.com. That's draziz.com and find out everything there.
Thank you so much. And we'll put all the show notes or all those links in the show notes. I want to close this episode on a beautiful poem. This actually brought a tear to my eye. This is a poem that you include in the book. It's called Love After Love by
Mm.
Derek Walcott. I absolutely love this poem. So I'm going to read this right now. It reads, "The time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, 'Sit here, eat.' You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. feast on your life.
Mm.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And what a beautiful way to think about our journey. So thank you for sharing that and for all of this information. This has been absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I want to thank you for joining me, and remember to subscribe through your favorite app so you can stay up to date. And I would love your review. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and comment on Apple Podcasts. You can also keep in touch with me online. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Instagram at Force of Badassery. All that information will be available in the show notes. Until next time, stay brave.